Chosen one, stop breathing for a second. Right now. Feel that weight in your chest? That's not random anxiety. That's memory. That's the exact hour the enemy received the order. End this one before the acceleration hits. You didn't just go through a hard season. You were marked for simultaneous saturation. They didn't send one problem, then wait a few months for the next. They dropped the full arsenal at once because something in your spirit terrified them. The moment your calling started breathing on its own, the war room lit up, and they chose overload. You remember the week everything collided. The betrayal text at 2:17 a.m. The job that vanished the same afternoon. The friend who turned cold without explanation. The sudden sickness that made no sense. The dreams that left you crying before your eyes even opened. It didn't feel like separate attacks. It felt like drowning in every direction at the same time. That was intentional. They were trying to make you believe you were finished before your real assignment even started. But hear me clearly. You didn't crack under that pressure. You were being compressed for detonation. What they meant for collapse, heaven used for ignition. The very hour they marked you for overwhelm is the same hour God marked you for dominion. Chosen one, pause right here. If your spirit is already burning while you hear this, don't just sit quietly. This isn't another video. This is confirmation you've been asking heaven for. Subscribe now, not because I said so, but because you know the enemy tries hardest to cut the line right when the next word is coming. Don't let distractions steal what God is releasing over you today. Hit subscribe so you stay locked in when the next confirmation drops. You've waited too long to miss this flow. You're still here. That means something. Now keep listening. You thought you were fighting one thing at a time. You weren't. You were inside a single, massive execution attempt. Multiple assignments didn't take turns. They arrived together, coordinated, synchronized, like they had rehearsed the timing for years. Confusion hit at the same moment fatigue crushed your body. Isolation wrapped around you while delay blocked every door. Betrayal spoke through lips you trusted while rejection emails landed in the same hour. That wasn't bad luck. That was strategy. The enemy doesn't waste full ammunition unless it believes the target cannot recover. They believed you couldn't recover. They were wrong. Listen to me. While you were crying in the shower asking why all at once, spiritual forces were screaming, "It's not working." Every time you chose to stand up anyway, every time you whispered, "God, I trust you," through clenched teeth, every time you refused to curse the people who hurt you, a piece of their structure cracked. They sent everything because they were running out of time. You didn't know it yet, but you were already walking through the rubble of their failed plan. You didn't survive a season. You walked through the moment they tried to erase your future. And because you kept your heart toward heaven instead of toward revenge, the entire attack imploded in your presence. Not slowly, not over years. In one compressed, brutal, divine collision. You are not here by accident. You are here because something in you refused to break when everything was stacked against you. That refusal activated authority most people never touch. The same pressure that was meant to destroy you is now the signature God uses to identify you in the spirit. Chosen one, if your eyes are stinging right now, if your chest feels tight, if you're nodding even though no one else is in the room, that's not emotion. That's recognition. You already knew this was true. You just needed to hear it said out loud. Stay right here. The next part is where the real elevation begins. Chosen one, listen close. They didn't send the full storm because they're powerful. They sent it because they were desperate. The moment your spirit started moving faster than their timeline allowed, panic hit their camp. They saw the shift before you did. They felt the acceleration in the atmosphere. They knew if they let you walk another step unopposed, the window would close forever. So they didn't wait. They didn't space it out. They threw everything they had at the same moment, hoping volume would replace strategy. You felt it in your body. You felt it in your sleep. You felt it in the silence of people who used to call every day. That wasn't coincidence. That was countdown. The enemy doesn't empty the arsenal unless the clock is screaming. And the clock was screaming your name. Every tear you cried in private, every night you begged God for one more day of strength, every time you whispered, "I can't take much more," something in the spirit realm flinched. Not because you were weak, because you were winning without even knowing the score yet. They needed you to fold before the acceleration hit full speed. You didn't fold. You stood. And because you stood, their entire plan collapsed under its own weight. This is the part most people never reach. The moment when the attack that was supposed to end you becomes the proof that time has already run out for your enemies. You didn't just survive their last move. You outlasted their deadline. That is why the pressure felt inhuman. It was their final scream before the silence. Chosen one, if your heart is pounding right now, if your eyes are burning, if you're nodding even though you're alone, that's not just emotion. That's the Holy Spirit saying, you heard correctly. Don't move. The next layer is where everything starts to make sense. You thought you were fighting faces. You weren't. You were dismantling invisible contracts written against your destiny long before you were born. The people who hurt you, the ones who turned without warning, the ones who smiled while they withheld what you needed, they were only carriers, not the source. The real opposition wasn't in their words or their actions. It was in the assignment that used them. And that assignment had one goal: terminate your calling before it could breathe on its own. When the betrayal hit hardest, when the door slammed in your face, when the help you counted on disappeared overnight, it wasn't random cruelty. It was coordinated interruption. Multiple spirits were assigned to different parts of your life at the same time so you wouldn't have space to recover. One to cloud your mind. One to exhaust your body. One to isolate your heart. One to delay your provision. All at once. That's why it didn't feel like normal trouble. It felt like war on every front. But here is the divine reversal. Every time you chose forgiveness instead of bitterness. Every time you kept praying even when the words wouldn't come out loud. Every time you refused to let anger become your new identity. You weren't just surviving. You were canceling assignments. One by one. Quietly. Irreversibly. The people who carried those assignments didn't even know they were being used. But heaven did. And heaven protected you long enough for the carriers to be exposed and the contracts to be torn. You didn't defeat people. You defeated the orders given against you. That is why the attacks felt so personal, and why the victory will feel even more undeniable. You're not the same person who entered that pressure. You're carrying authority that was activated in the fire. And the next thing coming is not another battle. It's the evidence that the assignments are gone. Chosen one, stay right here. We're about to walk into the part where you see exactly what collapsed while you thought you were barely holding on. Chosen one, go back to that exact moment. The phone stopped ringing. The texts slowed to nothing. The person you trusted most looked at you different one day, colder, distant, like they had already decided you were no longer worth the effort. You felt it in your stomach before your mind caught up. That wasn't just hurt. That was your first loud confirmation. Loyalty didn't vanish because you changed. It vanished because your elevation became visible in the spirit before it showed up in your life. Some people carry assignments they don't even understand. They were sent to walk with you only until the moment your calling started moving faster than their assignment allowed. When that moment came, they didn't have to be told to leave. Their spirit simply recoiled. They felt the shift. They felt the weight of what you carry now. And instead of celebrating it, they withdrew. You didn't lose them. You were protected from them. The silence you walked through wasn't abandonment. It was divine separation. God removed what could not travel where you're going. The people who left didn't leave because they hated you. They left because they could no longer carry the assignment they were given against you. Once the assignment expired, their access expired too. You thought you were being rejected. You were actually being refined. Every empty chair at the table, every unanswered message, every sudden cold shoulder that was heaven saying, not them, not anymore. You're moving too fast for what they were sent to do. The ones who stayed, they're the remnant. They're the ones who recognized the fire on you and chose to stand in it with you. You didn't lose loyalty. You gained discernment. And discernment is more valuable than 10 fake friends. What felt like loss was actually the first visible sign that the acceleration had already begun. Chosen one, stop right here for a second. If your chest is tight, if tears are close, if you're whispering yes under your breath, that's not random. That's God confirming you're exactly where He needs you to be. Listen, I know you've been walking this part alone, quietly carrying the pain. But chosen ones like you don't find messages this precise by accident. If this word is hitting your soul the way I know it is, don't keep carrying it in silence. Hit subscribe right now. Join the family that's been praying for you, waiting for you, recognizing you. Don't walk through the next part of this elevation alone when heaven has already placed people here who understand exactly what you're feeling. Subscribe because the next confirmation might be waiting in the very next video. You deserve to stay connected. You thought those nights alone were the lowest points. They weren't. They were the turning points. While you were sitting in the dark asking God why everything felt so heavy, something in the spirit was cracking wide open. Every tear that fell in secret was like a hammer hitting stone. Every time you whispered, "I don't know how much longer I can do this," a chain somewhere snapped. You didn't see it. You didn't hear it. But heaven recorded it. The enemy counted on your tears being weakness. They were wrong. Your tears were weaponized surrender. Every time you refused to curse God, refused to curse the people who hurt you, refused to let bitterness become your new voice, authority transferred. Not slowly, not gradually, instantly. In the quiet, in the private, in the place no one else could see. That moment you wanted to quit but stayed anyway. That moment you laid in bed too tired to pray but still said his name. That moment you chose silence over retaliation. Each one was a transfer of power. The enemy didn't just lose ground. They lost jurisdiction. They were watching for you to break so they could claim permanent access. Instead, your quiet obedience starved their legal right. And when the right expired, the entire structure they built around you began to collapse, not with noise, not with drama, but with irreversible finality. You weren't barely holding on. You were quietly dismantling everything sent to hold you down. The pressure didn't destroy you. It revealed you. The same nights you thought you were losing were the nights you were actually winning in ways most people will never understand. Chosen one, you are not the person who entered that fire. You came out carrying authority that was forged in the place no one else could follow. What felt like the end of your strength was actually the beginning of your dominion. Keep listening. The next part is where you see exactly what fell while you thought you were the one falling. Chosen one. This is where most people miss what really happened. You didn't shout back. You didn't post long explanations. You didn't chase people who walked away. You didn't demand apologies that were never coming. And that silence was your greatest weapon. The enemy expected noise. They expected outrage. They expected you to defend yourself so hard that you'd drain your own spirit, proving you were right. Every time you stayed quiet, every time you swallowed the urge to set the record straight, every time you let the lies stand without correction, you starved them. You gave them nothing to feed on. No fuel, no attention, no emotional energy. They were built to thrive on your reaction. When you refused to react, you cut their oxygen. That moment you felt the sting of betrayal and still chose peace. Power multiplied. That moment someone spoke against you and you didn't defend your name. Authority transferred. That moment you wanted to scream but instead whispered God sees and kept walking. The entire opposition structure started to shake. Not because you were passive, because you were precise. You didn't give the enemy any new legal ground to stand on. You didn't hand them fresh ammunition. You let the old assignments expire in silence. And silence is how real spiritual dominance moves. Quiet, controlled, irreversible. You thought you were losing your voice. You were actually preserving your authority. The people who expected you to break under pressure watched you walk through fire without burning, and they didn't know what to do with that. Your restraint confused them. Your calm dismantled them. Your refusal to play their game left them with no moves left. Chosen one, you are standing in a place most never reach. Post-reaction authority. What used to provoke you now passes through you. What used to wound you now exposes them. You didn't just survive the attack. You changed the rules of engagement forever. Keep listening. The next part shows you exactly what elevation looks like when the noise finally stops. Chosen one. Something has shifted in the atmosphere around you. You can feel it even if you can't name it yet. The same words that used to cut deep now sound like background noise. The same people who used to drain you now feel far away. The same situations that used to keep you up at night now pass without taking your peace. That's not coincidence. That's placement. You didn't just survive the war. You changed rank. The pressure that once felt like it was crushing your chest now bounces off a different level of authority. The confusion that used to cloud your mind for weeks now clears in hours. The delay that used to make you question God's timing now feels like a brief pause before something bigger arrives. This is what post-war authority looks like. Less noise, less resistance, less explanation. Not because the battle's stopped, because you are no longer accessible at the old frequency. What used to overwhelm you can't even find the door anymore. What used to intimidate you now looks small because you've been enlarged in the spirit. The enemy still tries, they always will, but their attacks no longer land where they used to. They hit a shield they didn't know was there. That shield was forged in the very pressure they sent to destroy you. You are not arrogant for noticing this. You are awake to what God has done. You are standing in a new position where old fears no longer have jurisdiction. Former attacks no longer have access. Opinions no longer have definition over you. This is not pride. This is promotion. Chosen one, you passed the threshold many never reach. The fire didn't consume you. It refined you. It repositioned you. It sealed you for what comes next. And what comes next will not feel like survival. It will feel like command. Stay right here. The next part is where you begin to see the evidence of that new rank in your everyday life. Chosen one, this is where everything changes again. You were waiting for relief. You were waiting for the storm to pass, for the weight to lift, for someone to finally say, it's over. But that's not what arrived. What arrived was command. Your breakthrough didn't feel gentle. It didn't come wrapped in soft peace and long sighs of rest. It came as authority. One moment you were asking, begging, hoping. The next moment you heard yourself speaking decisions instead of questions. You stopped asking for permission. You stopped waiting to be chosen. You stopped trying to be understood by people who already decided who you are. That shift wasn't gradual. It was instant. And it felt terrifying because clarity always does when confusion used to be your normal. What once took hours of prayer now takes one firm decision. What once required begging God to move now requires you to align and watch things move out of the way. What once resisted you now steps aside, not because it wants to, but because it has no choice. This is not ease. This is authority in motion. You didn't earn this by being perfect. You earned it by staying obedient when everything in you wanted to quit. You earned it by keeping your heart soft toward heaven while the world tried to make it hard. You earned it by refusing to become what the pressure wanted to turn you into. And now the same pressure that tried to break you has become the platform you stand on. Chosen one, you are no longer asking for a way through. You are the way through. The confusion that used to own your days has lost its grip. The delay that used to mock your promises has been silenced. What you carry now moves faster than what used to slow you down. This is the season where decisions replace doubt, and alignment replaces waiting. Keep listening. The next part shows you exactly why this new authority feels so undeniable. Chosen one, look back for just a second. The people who turned, the doors that closed, the help that vanished, they didn't leave because you failed. They left because your elevation made their assignment impossible to complete. They sensed the shift before you did. That's why the loyalty changed. That's why the support dried up. That's why subtle sabotage replaced open confrontation. They thought delay meant defeat. They thought silence meant surrender. They thought your restraint was weakness. They were wrong on every count. What they tried to slow has now outgrown their reach. What they tried to stop has already passed their line of sight. Elevation doesn't need to announce itself. It simply exposes everything that cannot travel with you. You don't have to confront them. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to prove anything. The proof is in the distance between where they are and where you're standing now. The same people who once had access to your heart now feel like strangers from another lifetime. That's not coldness. That's clarity. That's protection. That's God saying, not them. Not anymore. Not at this level. What felt like loss was actually mercy. What felt like rejection was actually rescue. What felt like silence was actually strategy. Everything that was hidden in their hearts has now been laid bare, not by your anger, but by your advancement. You moved forward, and the masks fell off without you ever pulling them. That is the power of real elevation. It reveals without requiring you to accuse. Chosen one, stop right here. If you haven't subscribed yet, ask yourself why. Every time you've searched for answers, every time the weight felt too heavy, every time you needed to hear that you weren't crazy, God guided you right here. This isn't random. This is divine appointment. Don't reject what heaven is trying to give you. Hit subscribe right now, so you stay connected to the voice that keeps confirming what your spirit already knows. Don't walk through the next level alone when God has already placed this family here to walk with you. Subscribe because the next word you need might be waiting in tomorrow's release. You've come too far to let distraction cut the line. Chosen one, feel that shift inside you right now. It's not imagination. It's placement. You are no longer standing where the attacks used to find you. You have been moved, repositioned, Elevated to a place where old fears no longer have a grip, where former attacks no longer have a target, where opinions no longer have the power to define you. This is post-war authority. The war didn't end because the enemy gave up. It ended because you outgrew their range. The same words that used to wound you now slide off like water. The same situations that used to keep you awake now pass without stealing your sleep. The same people who used to drain your spirit now feel distant, small, almost irrelevant. That's not coldness. That's consequence. That's what happens when someone is carried to a new rank. You didn't climb here by striving. You were carried here by obedience. Every time you chose trust over bitterness, every time you chose silence over revenge, every time you chose God's name over the pain, you were being lifted. Step by step, tear by tear, surrender by surrender. Now you stand in a position most never reach. The place where the battle is over. But the authority is just beginning. What used to overwhelm you now looks like a memory that can't touch the present. What used to intimidate you now looks like a shadow that can't cross your path. You are not arrogant for noticing this change. You are awake to what heaven has done. You are carrying rank that was paid for in the fire you walked through. And that rank comes with something new. Protection that feels automatic. Clarity that feels instant. Peace that feels permanent. Chosen one, you passed the threshold. The war is behind you. The authority is in front of you. What comes next will not feel like another fight. It will feel like the natural result of everything you refuse to let go of. Stay right here. The next part is where you begin to see the movement that proves it. Chosen one, pay attention to what's happening inside you these days. Things that used to take everything you had now take only one clear yes or no. Doors that used to stay locked for months now open with a single step. Provision that used to arrive after weeks of worry now shows up right after you decide it's time. This is not magic. This is alignment. You are no longer begging for breakthrough. You are deciding where breakthrough will land. What once required hours of wrestling in prayer now requires a firm "I receive it" and a refusal to back down. What once required explaining yourself to everyone now requires explaining yourself to no one. What once resisted you with every ounce of strength now moves out of the way because it recognizes the authority speaking. This is the season where effort is replaced by authority. You don't have to force anything anymore. You simply have to stay in agreement with what God already said. The delay that used to mock you now feels like a brief breath before acceleration. The confusion that used to own your mind now dissolves the moment you speak truth over it. The resistance that used to feel like a wall now feels like paper you walk through. You earned this not by being flawless, but by being faithful. You kept your heart toward heaven when everything else pulled you the other way. You kept your eyes on the promise when the circumstances screamed impossible. And now the promise is no longer far off. It is moving toward you at the speed of obedience. What once felt like climbing a mountain now feels like walking a path that was already cleared for you. Chosen one, this is not the end of struggle. This is the beginning of dominion. The decisions you make now carry weight they never carried before. The words you speak now move things they never moved before. The peace you carry now protects you in ways it never could before. You are not waiting for victory anymore. You are walking in it. Keep listening. The next part is where the final declaration lands. Chosen one, let this settle deep inside you. You were not preserved so you could stay small. You were not protected so you could stay hidden. You were not refined so you could stay quiet forever. You were forged for impact. The fire you walked through was not punishment. It was preparation. Every night you cried in secret. Every day you felt invisible. Every moment you wondered if God forgot you. That was the forge. The heat didn't come to destroy you. It came to shape you into something the enemy could never touch and the world could never ignore. What you carry is not gentle. It is decisive. It is visible. It is undeniable. That's why the pressure never felt normal. That's why the attacks never came one at a time. That's why the isolation felt so complete. Heaven needed you to learn how to stand alone with God before you could stand in front of people with authority. You learned to. You stood. And now the next season is not about survival. It is about movement. You don't have to announce your arrival. Your movement will do it for you. The same people who once overlooked you will suddenly notice the shift. The same doors that once stayed shut will open, because the authority walking through them is no longer asking, it is expecting. The same resistance that once felt like a mountain will now feel like a speed bump you barely notice. This is not a soft landing. This is a forceful launch. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to stand out. You were never meant to shrink under pressure. You were meant to grow larger because of it. The reason this message feels so heavy is because your next step is not small. It is weighty. It is purposeful. It is already in motion. Chosen one, you are not here to be comforted forever. You are here to be sent. The fire has done its work. Now the impact begins. Stay right here. The final declaration is coming. Chosen one, hear this as truth, not hype. You didn't just get through spiritual warfare. You ended it. What was sent to stop you collapsed the moment you refused to break. What was assigned to drain you ran out of strength before you did. What was meant to confuse you lost its power the second you chose trust over doubt. You didn't step into victory. You stood after annihilation. The battlefield is quiet now, not because the enemy surrendered, but because their weapons no longer reach you. Every assignment that converged against you at once has expired. Every monitoring spirit that watched for your fall has been blinded. Every contract written to terminate your destiny early has been torn in the spirit. You didn't win by fighting harder. You won by standing firmer. You didn't win by shouting louder. You won by obeying quieter. You didn't win by explaining yourself. You won by letting heaven do the explaining. The pressure that felt like it would crush you forever became the very thing that proved your rank. The betrayal that felt like it would destroy your trust became the very thing that sharpened your discernment. The delay that felt like punishment became the very thing that accelerated your arrival. Everything they meant for evil has been turned. Not slowly, not partially, completely. You are not recovering. You are reigning. You are not healing from wounds. You are walking in wholeness that makes old scars irrelevant. You are not hoping for breakthrough. You are carrying the breakthrough that already happened. This is the moment many never reach. You reached it. And because you reached it, what comes next will not ask for permission. It will demand attention. It will require obedience. It will leave no room for doubt. Chosen one, you are standing on ground the enemy can no longer claim. Move accordingly. The next chapter is the final one. It's time to declare what you already know is true. Chosen one, this is the moment. Not the beginning of your story. Not the middle. The moment right after the fire stopped roaring and the smoke cleared. You are standing. Not limping. Not crawling. Standing. Tall. Whole. Carrying authority that was forged when everything tried to take it from you. You didn't just survive spiritual warfare. You ended it. What was sent to erase your future fell silent in your presence. What was assigned to drain your spirit ran dry before you did. What was meant to confuse your path lost its direction the moment you chose to keep walking forward. The enemy didn't retreat because they wanted to. They retreated because they had nothing left to throw. You didn't defeat them with weapons they understood. You defeated them with obedience they couldn't comprehend. Every night you thought you were barely holding on, something broke in the spirit. Every moment you wanted to quit but stayed, authority was transferred. Every time you kept your heart soft toward God while the world tried to make it hard, power multiplied. You didn't react. You didn't retaliate. You didn't explain. And because you didn't, the entire structure of opposition collapsed quietly, completely, irreversibly. This is not a comeback. This is a new rank. You are no longer asking for permission to exist. You are no longer waiting to be chosen. You are no longer trying to be understood by people who already chose a different story. You are moving with clarity that terrifies systems built on confusion. You are carrying dominion that was activated in the very pressure meant to destroy it. Chosen one, hear this as final truth. You didn't just get through. You came out on the other side carrying what they tried to stop. The war is over. The victory is sealed. The next season is not gentle. It is decisive. It is visible. It is undeniable. You don't need to announce it. Your movement will. Move accordingly. Walk like someone who already won. Speak like someone who already knows the outcome. Live like someone who already carries the rank. Because you do. And heaven is watching with approval. Chosen one. Before you go, pause for a moment. The fact that you made it to the very end of this message means something deep. Your spirit was hungry for this. Your heart was waiting for this confirmation. Don't walk away without locking in. Don't let the enemy distract you right when the next word is coming. Hit subscribe right now, not because I asked, but because you know this is part of the journey God is taking you on. It costs nothing, but it means everything. Join the family of chosen ones who are standing with you, praying for you, recognizing you, Type "I'm ready" in the comments if this word hit your soul the way heaven intended. Your breakthrough might already be in the next video waiting for you. Don't miss it. Subscribe. Stay connected. You've come too far to walk alone now.